Hi everyone, my name is Bradley Johnson, and today I want to give you a little scenario. Let us say that you have just started listening to a brand new cast recording of a musical, and you have become absolutely obsessed with it. You have listened to this recording day and night, backwards and forwards, naked and clothed, in the shower, out of the shower, everywhere that you possibly can, and you love it so much that you become ecstatic when you see on the internet that this show is coming to your metropolitan city of choice's theater as a touring production after being on Broadway for approximately, maybe a year. So you then say to yourself, well, goodness gracious me, I have to get tickets at once! You decide to throw away your dream of letting your offspring go to college by spending all your money to buy a ticket in the rear mezzanine of the theater in the metropolitan city of your choice to go and see this show that you have been avidly listening to for, well, a long time now. So, you then find a parking spot and pay your month's rent in order to get a good spot, and you buy a cocktail before the show that costs your next month's rent, even though it is only the size of a shot glass for a corgi. Finally, you hunker down into your seat in the rear mezzanine and you watch the first act of the show, go out and have your intermission bathroom break, which for men, it's more like an assembly line. For women, it's more like waiting at the DMV. You then go in for the second act and you watch through it and you sit there and the curtain falls and then you do the obligatory standing ovation because everyone around you has never seen a play before and, well, if you don't, then they will look at you as if you're a jerk. And so finally the show is over and you go back to your car parked in a spot which is only meant for smart cars, but you thought you'd take the chance anyway. And you finally sit down in your car and the only possible thought that you have in your head is... It was okay. Wait a minute. Just okay? But you listen to the soundtrack for so often and it had to be good. Huh. So this raises a very interesting point that I would like to talk about today. Can a recording be better than the show itself? Let's explore that, shall we? So I have three different ways that I think you can look at this problem. So the first one is that you have been listening to the recording and then you go and see the show, and after you see the show, you think that the recording is better. The second scenario is when you haven't listened to the recording before seeing the show, but you watch the show and hear the music simultaneously, and after you have seen the show, that's when you start to like the soundtrack, but you're still not as big on the show. And then the third scenario, in which the music was pre-existing, as in it was already existent before the show even came out. It wasn't written for it. So, let's start with number one. Now, I had decided to why not take apart my own experiences with these things in order to try and better answer this question. So, for the first problem, the number one show that came to mind in this case was A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. Now, here's a disclaimer. I love A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. So much so that I could make an entire video about it. Oh. And I had listened to the soundtrack far before I ever saw a production of it. And I had listened to it avidly, and I had known every song, and I still listen to it now because I think it's such a great score. It's just, and the voices, Bryce Pinkham and Jefferson Mays and everyone is so great. Lauren Worsham as Phoebe, everyone is perfectly cast, and the music is very good, and it's very Gilbert and Sullivan-esque, and well, it's just a really good show. And so, of course, when I had heard that A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder was coming to my town, I had decided, well, I'm gonna go see this show. And after I saw it, I came out of the theater thinking, yeah, it wasn't bad. But I had expected it to be fantastic. I expected it to be this amazing show. And granted, I think it's still a great show. The thing is just that I think that the score is the highlight of the show. So, I think there are a few reasons for this in this context of listening to the recording before actually seeing the show, as to why the recording might seem better than the show itself. when you're listening to a recording, you really don't have much of an idea of what the show looks like. And so, I think that what happens is that you get this image in your head of what the show is like, and the staging, and the characters, and how everything is done, and so you get this idea of your perfect show. And when you go and see it, it's a lot different than what you may have expected it to be, and so that's why the recording is probably going to be a lot different than what you thought it was going to be. Or, in the case of Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, there's the clip from the Tonys where they're singing I've Decided to Marry You, and it's wildly funny, and you expect the entire show to be set up like that, but it's not, because you see, in A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder specifically, there's this big screen that has all the sets behind it, and there's not a lot of set work done in A Gentleman's Guide, and that's not exactly what I thought was going to happen. And so, when my expectation was different from what the actual staging was like, it may have changed things. And the other thing is that when you listen to a cast recording, you are getting this expectation of what the show is going to be like. And when your expectations are let down, even just a tiny bit, like my case in A Gentleman's Guide, then you think to yourself, oh, well, the recording was good, but the show still wasn't quite up to par. So, it's not necessarily that you think the show is bad, it's just that the music is the highlight in your opinion, and you knew the music first, and you fell in love with the music first, so you got an expectation of what the show was going to be like, and when it wasn't as good as your initial impression of the original cast recording, then, well, you become a little bit disappointed. And, mind you, I still love A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder. It might make it into my top 10 shows, at least an honorable mention. I think it's great. But my expectations were let down because I had a certain image in my head of what I wanted the show to be. Now, for the next point of why a cast recording might be better than the actual show, I have two shows that I have in mind for this one. You see, when you watch a show and you're not a huge fan of the show itself, but then afterwards you go and listen to the music and you still really like the music, I have two shows in mind. My Fair Lady and Rent. Now, don't try and, murder me quite yet. It's just that I like the music a lot to both of these shows, but when I was watching them, the story wasn't as huge for me. Now, this is kind of different for both shows that I want to discuss with this example. So, let's talk about My Fair Lady first. Now, as far as My Fair Lady goes, it was based on a play called Pygmalion, written by George Bernard Shaw, I believe. And the thing is that it is a very good story, and it has good characters, and it's well put together. However, when I first saw the film with Rex Harrison and Audrey Hepburn and Stanley Holloway, I was not particularly impressed because I liked certain songs, it's just the story was something I couldn't get into. And that's because I kind of found out later that I'm just not a fan of the story. And that's not to say it's not a well-written piece. It's very well constructed, and everything is good about it. And then I had really sort of showed this animosity towards the show, but then I started listening to the music again, and I fell in love with the music. Like, there's Wouldn't It Be Loverly, On the Street Where You Live, Why Can't the English Teach Your Children How to Speak, Why Can't a Woman Be More Like a Man, I'm Getting Married in the Morning, a ton of great songs. It's just that I'm not a huge fan of the story, and so I think you are able to look at the story and then see the music in a different light, because a huge thing about liking a recording, but not necessarily the show, is context. If you see these songs within context, you're going to treat it a lot differently than when you see them out of context, because out of context, hearing On the Street Where You Live, it's like, oh, this is a beautiful love song. In context, it's kind of like, you know, he's never really spoken to her, and he's kind of a crappy guy because he only likes her after she wasn't a flower girl anymore. So context is a huge thing, and once you are listening to the music out of context, you can appreciate more of the music and the lyrics and how the song is constructed rather than what the song is like within the context of the musical's plot. So I think that seeing it in and out of context is definitely an important thing, especially if you're looking at why you may like the recording but you didn't like the story. And so, yeah, with My Fair Lady, I just really liked the music right after I had watched the show, because while I was watching the show, I wasn't really paying attention to what the songs were like. I wasn't paying attention to the music and the lyrics and things like that. I was paying attention to what they were like within the story. And then that brings us to Rent. Rent is a fascinating example because I really wasn't a huge fan of the show when I first saw it. I didn't really know what to think of it. I thought, this really doesn't have much of a plot. And that's kind of interesting because you see then, because I had already known Seasons of Love when I had seen this, but of course everybody knows Seasons of Love. And then I had started listening to the original cast recording and, well, highlights of, best of, and then I really started to like the music a lot, and it wasn't necessarily because of character, which that I think is one of the highlights of the show, is the characters, and that's what you're supposed to get invested in, and the plot kind of takes a back seat in Rent, which is why I think Rent is such a fascinating show. But then I started listening to the music, and I liked a lot of the songs. There are still certain songs that I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of Rogers stuff, but I became really a huge fan of things like La Vie Boheme, Take Me or Leave Me, Out Tonight, the opening song, Today for You, Tomorrow for Me, I'll Cover You, tons of songs that I really, really enjoyed. And it's interesting that I only liked them afterwards because within the context of the musical, it's just about the character. A lot of the songs are just inner monologue songs. I think it's, Sondheim called it the difference between a song and a number. A number is like a musical scene. It advances the plot of something. But then a song tells what the person is thinking on the inside. And if I'm messing that up, I apologize to Mr. Sondheim. Praise be unto him. But I also apologize to anyone who I might be offending for any reason of just mixing these things up. But anyways, I think that with Rent, I liked the music afterwards because I really was trying to get a story out of it. I was trying to get a plot and I wasn't getting anything. Because the plot takes a back seat. It's all about the characters and it's about an atmosphere. The music makes an atmosphere, and once I listened to the music after that, I was taken back into that atmosphere, and that's why I think the music is so good. But when I first watched it, I wasn't a huge fan of it, because I was looking for a plot when I wasn't supposed to be. Okay, that was long-winded. Alright, now, in order to go to the next part on my list, is the third version where the music was not written for the show and it was already existing. And my example here is Jersey Boys. Now, the thing with Jersey Boys is that it's based on the music written by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Well, I don't know if it was... not written by all of them, but anyways. The thing is that it's a bio musical. And, well, there's a term in musical theater where it's called a jukebox musical, where it's all the music from a certain period of time, all the music by a certain artist, or things along those lines. And in this one, it's not just the music of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. It's telling their story. And the thing is that I enjoy the music by Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. I really enjoy the music. But I think the plot kind of lets it down. The highlight of it is hearing these songs sung. And there's a lot of argument, actually, as to if these types of musicals are even musicals at all, because, well, it's like with Pitch Perfect. Pitch Perfect is the most successful movie musical ever, but even Anna Kendrick said that it's not really a musical because none of the music advances the plot. And that's the case with a lot of jukebox musicals. And with Jersey Boys, none of the plot is advanced, so it's all the in-between stuff that is really trying to be the heartbeat of the plot in here, and the plot just falls short, but the music I already enjoyed. And that's why a lot of people go and see these musicals, is because they think, oh, this is a musical about this artist that I really liked, or this music that I really liked, or this time period that I really liked, so they go and see it for the music, and the plot doesn't have to be great, because it's about the music that is in it. It's not about any sort of plot line. So that's where things where it's more reasonable to like the recording better than the actual show, because you knew you were gonna, for a lot of people, they knew they were going to like the music going into the show. Yeah, there are a lot of different ways you can look at this, but can a recording be better than the musical itself? Absolutely. Alright, I think that's all I have to say about that. And it's a lot of rambling. And now, it's time for the Knick-Knack of the Week. So, for this Knick-Knack of the Week, I have this. It is a deconstructed clock that, well, has my very first acting payment inside of it. Because you see, when the summer before my freshman year of high school, at least I think, yeah, summer before my freshman year of high school, I was in a show with a college called the University of Northern Colorado, and they were putting on Golden Pond, and I was fortunate enough to be cast as the part of the 13-year-old Billy Ray, even though I was 14 at the time. And my director had said, we're not going to pay you for this show, at least this time around. But then I said, but I want to be a professional actor. So then I was paid 35 cents by my director so that I could be a professional actor. So I have this framed above my bed as my very first acting payment. I'm a nerd! Well, folks, that is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give me a like, and please, as always, subscribe. I really have a lot of opinions about this, and I hope that you do too, and I hope all of it made sense, too. But please leave a comment. What do you think about cast recordings being better or worse than their shows? And, well, just please be nice about it. And I think that a lot of people have different opinions about this, and so I think it's open to a lot of really interesting discussion. So, anyways, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Please, as always, just be nice to other people and go listen to a cast recording today that maybe you're not huge on the show, but you really like the music anyways. So, yeah, like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye!